I think it comes up in the chat for everyone, but I can send you a link if you can't find it. But okay,
Thank
so
you
let's
so
try
much.
again. So you can see the screen there. I'm masquerading as St Margaret's Hospice as a super user. So going to content management, and probably the first place to start would be, I mean, if you've seen our standard assessments, whether you if you just want to add some questions to that or modify those, what you can do is come into assessment management, find now look, but you've got bowel care there. If I grab bowel care as an example, just go in to the adult section, then to the bowel care category and search. You find that I think we've got two assessments already set up on bowel care, one for carers and one for just for general use. Is that text big enough? Do you want me to make it a little bit larger? Can you read that
It,
okay?
it's fine for me.
Okay, it's great. Okay. So now you can see here this one has got 135 available questions, but it only chooses 26 every time the assessment's taken. So it chooses a random 26. What you could do is you can duplicate that assessment and then modify it yourself rather than starting from scratch. So that might be one way of doing it. If I look at the assessment, so um, I won't, if I can duplicate that. So let me just do that for now. We can obviously delete it again if you change your mind, and it won't be published for other people to see. So I'll duplicate the assessment. And sorry, the way to do that is obviously to find the assessment, come across to the actions button and pick duplicate assessment. Okay, so that will then in a second give us, it'll just duplicate it, including all the questions and question banks that it accesses. Right, there we go. And it's come up at the top as a duplicate, bowel care duplicate, and now as a local assessment. It says clinical skills because I'm doing it masquerading. If you do it yourself, it'll have your own name there. But now what you've got those the question banks with 135 questions. So you're still using the standard question banks, but you can change which questions you use. So if I go in and edit this assessment now, we've got the 4 stages for setting your assessment up. We've got the introductory screen there, which has just got the name, which I can change to if I put St Margaret's Hospice there, so you know it's your own version. Then let me just change title. Okay. Then on the next page is where you pick the question banks you want to use in the assessment. Now you can make changes here. You see, this bowel care assessment is taking questions from a whole load of different bowel care guides, which is not as easy to think as it should be, say as it should be. What you can do is you can look at these individual question banks and you can manage which questions are used. So, for example, at the moment, it's using the standard question bank constipation treatment. You can come in to click on questions, and then at this point you can actually change which questions the assessment is using. So you can go through and the questions are listed here, and it tells you whether they're going to be used randomly, whether they're going to be compulsory and not in use. So you could at that point just go through and change individual questions to, for example, compulsory or not in use. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
rather than reinventing the whole thing, you could just go through, look at the questions. Now you can individually you can change them. So if I say take the first question and you decide you don't want it in this assessment, you could click not in use there. And then after a second or two, the screen would update to say not in use. So I'll put that back as available for random. Takes a second. Or a quicker way is if you use the boxes on the left and just quickly tick the ones you want to change, the ones you want to take out, and then you get a new actions button appears and you can make them compulsory, available for random, or not in use all in one go rather than doing it individually. Does that
So
make
we would,
sense?
yeah, so we
Yeah,
would still have to go through each question bank
you would.
and look
Yeah.
at each question.
Yeah, you would still need to do that, but then at least you've got the questions that you're working
Yeah,
from. Now, unfortunately, bowel care has got a lot of guides linked to it, so there's a lot
yeah.
of questions. But you could, I mean, I change this from 10 to 100, do a search, and then they are all listed down the page. So it would be a matter of just on the left here saying, decide you're going to pick the ones you don't want to use first, and saying no, we don't want that, we don't want that. So it is just a matter of going down the list and then when you've ticked them all, come up to this actions button and select not in use, and they won't be used for this assessment. If they are selected for random, this at the top determines how many of those random questions are picked from this one question bank each time it's taken. So does that make sense? That you've got what, 16 questions or whatever it was in here selected as random, but only 4 will be chosen from this question bank each time. So yeah, so I think I get the feeling you're getting you've got the concepts there, which is great. So it's just a matter of trying to trim down the workload. So if you do that for the different question banks, and as I say, these are still standard question banks, so you can't add new questions to these question banks as such, but work down through there, and there's, it looks worse than it is. Once you open them, scan down through the list, just pick the ones you don't want to use, then, and then save them. That's that job done. Then if you want to add your own questions, what I'd suggest is making a new question bank with the questions you want to add, putting your own questions in that question bank, and then adding it to this assessment. That's going to be rather than trying to copy each individual question bank and add questions to it, probably, put all your bowel care local questions in one question bank, and then add that to the assessment, and then you can change the order that the questions come up using the question summary. Does that help at all?
I think so, because that means we can do it at a later date, doesn't it? Whereas I think we were feeling that we had to do it all at the same time. Whereas, yeah, if we can kind of get a general one going, and then, people come and say, we haven't asked this, or, can we add this? Then we've got a way of doing that. I think that's really important. That's
the way. I mean, I'd come in here and just work through them all and focus first on taking out questions. I mean, I don't know if you want to make any questions mandatory. I get the feeling there's just questions you don't want included. So yeah, just go down there and use the boxes on the left and say don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. Change the status to not in use and not used, and do that for those. And then we add another question bank. As you say, you come back to content management, and you go into question bank. And so if we work on this one, create a question bank, give it the title. So we could say bowel care, so Margaret's Hospice, local questions, for example. Pick the section that it's linked to, because that makes it easier to find in the later boxes, and it also makes sure that the correct guides are showing when you actually publish the assessment. So category, so we're down to, where are we? Bowel care, there we go. And the guides, just leave that blank and it will pick all the guides in the category. Create that. So you can see there it's added all the various guides that we've done. And there's a few actually we just updated. We've just updated DRE and quite a few of these actually. So there's a newsletter coming out shortly which has got updates to them. So okay, so once you've done that, click save. I've just created a question bank. Oop, boom, boom, there we go. And there we are, we've got the question bank there. Now it's not published at the moment, so that means you can add things to it and there's no danger of being picked up and used in an assessment. The thing to remember is when you do want to use it in the assessment, change that to published or you won't be able to find it. It'll just be invisible. And then you can come across here, click on the questions bit. And at this point, you can create your own questions. You can add some existing questions in there already, so questions that are already on the system, but you're going to want to create your own brand new ones by the sound of it. And do you want me to quickly show you how to do that now, or is that something you've had a look at?
I think it would be helpful just to really quickly.
Okay, so if you click create questions, and it says here you're creating a question for bowel care, so Margaret's Hospice, local questions. Again, is that still big enough? The text is quite small there.
No,
okay,
that's
Joe,
fine.
Marie? Yep. Okay. You can create different question types. You can create binary, which is true, false. Free text, I would steer away from using those because the person's got to type exactly the right answer. It doesn't really work very well.
I do
Works.
remember this now, actually.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I do, yeah. I can't remember who I've said what. So do you want me to keep going through and do my spiel and or yeah.
I think
I'll
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, I do
You're
too.
okay there.
Sorry. Yeah.
Again, no, that's okay. That's okay. Because, again, when you come to this stage, if you have any problems, come back to me and we'll go through creating a couple of questions. But you've got the various question types. Put the question there. If you want to give people feedback, what that means is that when they take the assessment and they submit it and they see the answers, they'll also see any additional information you put in that box there. So if, for example, it was a medicine calculation question, you quite often you would put the method used to find the answer in that box so that people see, okay, I got the answer wrong, but that's the method I should have used, or that's where I should have got the information from. So that can be quite handy as well. Okay, so you add questions
Steve,
to the question bank. Yep.
just a very basic question, and it's probably obvious. With the assessment question banks, will the assessment, if you've not picked, say for instance, you've got 6 different sections to, let's say, bowel,
Yeah.
the bowel, and you've one of them you don't want. Actually, catheterization is a good one because this is something we did. So catheterization, we wanted everything except for the suprapubic. I can't even say it.
Yeah.
Joe, help me.
Yeah.
That one,
Suprapubic, yeah.
except for that line, we didn't want that one. Will the assessment and the question bank know that we've not selected that one and take all those questions out for us, or do we have to find them and take them out?
If we look at the catheterization one, I imagine that's divided. I'm not sure how that's divided up. So what I'll do is I'll just come out of this one here. So we've got that question back, but there's no questions in it yet. And when you want to add it to your assessment, publish it, then you go back into the second part of assessment management where you select the question banks and the questions. So you'll do that there. So if I come back to if I look at the assessment for content for catheterization, and we'll see what question banks it uses. So if I leave it as adults and then change to catheterization, and go into there, and we'll have an assessment there on catheterization. So there we are. Again, we've got very similar to bowel care. We've got 2 assessments, one for carers and one for catheterization, drawing on lots of questions. So if I just view that, you can view the standard assessments. You can't edit them. You've got to duplicate them before you can, but you can view them, and we can see what questions and question banks they use. And what have we got here? There we go. So it actually uses a question bank changing a suprapubic catheter. So what you do is you duplicate that assessment, and then you take all the questions out of that question bank. And then when you get the introductory screen comes up with the assessment, it shouldn't include a link to the suprapubic catheter guide, because the question bank will be set up to link to that guide. So in that case, yeah, duplicate the whole assessment, just go in there and turn all the questions off, which you can do in one go, and then it will just be on the bottom with no questions, and it won't be referenced in the assessment. Does that help?
So, yeah, so it doesn't. So basically, we're going to have to go through and make sure that anything related to that particular topic, where we've got the odd few, that we're not selecting everything underneath the, let's say that the category.
Yeah.
We're going to have to be really careful that we remove those questions. Otherwise, they could get asked a question on something that they wouldn't have trained on anyway.
Yeah,
so
I mean, the way
to be
to see
super
it,
careful.
Yeah, should we quickly do this as an example? If I quickly go in and duplicate that assessment, so duplicate it again, give it a name, but when it comes, I'll just edit it. So duplicating catheterization, the standard one with 128 questions. So there it is at the top. So if I come across there and click edit, and again, I'll change that to so Margaret's Hospice local assessment. Okay, I won't worry about the categories and things. Okay, save that. Just change the title. Save and go to question bank selection. So we'll come and look. We're on the select question banks and questions. So we'll come down to suprapubic, click manage, and you don't want any of those questions. So what we'll do is just click the box at the top on the left. It's selected the 10 questions on the page, but you want all the questions, not just the ones on this page. So select all 20 questions. Come over here, but not in use. Okay, and then that'll take a second or two to update. There we go. And then when we come back to select question banks and questions, that one's not in there anymore. So you shouldn't get any questions coming up on suprapubic catheterization. It should also be a case that, let me just quickly, what I'm going to do is publish this very quickly. Okay.
So is it possible, because obviously there could be questions in other banks within the system and catheterization, or can we be confident that everything related to that would be in that one category?
It should be. That's because it's based on the guide, and the guide itself deals with it. So
right.
Let me just, what I'll do is I'll unpublish this in a moment. I just want to test what you see. So save and finish. Okay, now if I go back in, I'll go back to the dashboard, into assessments and local assessments. There we go. So there's your local assessment. Okay. And there we go. You see the guide to do with the suprapubic catheterization isn't shown anymore. So it should only take questions from these guides. So you shouldn't get any questions come up about suprapubic catheterization now. So is that the sort of thing you want?
Yeah, I think we didn't know whether the system automatically knew because we hadn't picked it. It would automatically take them out or not. I think that
it would do. Yeah. How it works is the question banks are linked to the guides. So the one question bank will get questions from that guide. You know, I mean, couldn't guarantee that maybe suprapubic isn't mentioned somewhere in some other guide, but it should just, you know, again, it might be worth just doing a once through and having a look at the questions and see if you can find anything that you want to exclude. What I'll do is I'll unpublish that again, because obviously we don't want people taking that when it's not ready. And again, with that one, create a local question bank, add it to that assessment with your own questions there. So I'll just unpublish it straight from the screen there. Okay, and that should update to unpublished in a second. There we are. So no one will be able to see that. So does that make sense? So I think your process is find an assessment that's pretty much what you want, duplicate it, go through all the questions in the question banks that are chosen and turn off those you don't want, then build your own local question bank and add it to the assessment. Does that work as a process?
Yeah. And I'm guessing from what you're saying, it'd be easier for us to manage to have, if we're adding the local one, is to add the local one for each guide. So in other words, like having one for bowel, having one for catheterization, having one for, rather than having a local bank. And
you can do. I mean, this is the thing. You could just have one question bank which was all our local questions, but it could get very big and very messy. I would say, you know, yeah, I'd say do your bowel care one, your catheterization one, and you know, get them up and running, taking out the questions you don't want, and then work your way through adding the question banks for each one. But it's going to be far easier rather than one big bank when you're trying to work out which were the bowel care and which were the catheterization questions. And you know, I wouldn't worry about having, you know, because there's several different bowel care guides. I wouldn't worry about having a different question bank for each one. I just have one bowel care question bank, and then pull the questions from there. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I bolted lunch down a bit quick. So because I had a meeting at 1:45, you see. So it's no, I don't mind at all.
People.
The only thing I did look at your list, and I looked at care certificate and thought, well, I won't mention that because that looks a bit complicated. But I suppose I've mentioned it now. Looking at the this might take a bit more work because there's quite a few assessments on the care certificate. So if I go into assessment management again.
I think if I just explain where it comes from, Steve, it's because our IPU lead was saying to us that they are getting a lot more recruitment from people who haven't come with the experience, therefore need to do the baseline foundation of the care certificate. So initially we thought, oh, well, we're not the NHS, so we don't need the NHS form. But then we looked at the other one and thought, well, that's more care home. So it's a bit like we then got ourselves into a circle of we actually don't know which one we actually is best.
And I think we started with this, which was our error as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think
this is our start point.
This is the thing, because it's quite a big subject, and we've got, you could like the bowel care and the catheterization ones, you could build one assessment to cover the whole lot. But I know one organisation did this, and they ended up the poor users ended up with assessments with about 100 questions in. So and you don't really, that is just soul destroying. So either do them individually or maybe try and group them into similar sort of topics. I mean, I think standard. It's difficult to know how to do it really, but that again is something for you to have a look at. I mean, the thing I would say about is our care certificate is we've just updated that in the last few months, so it's fully up to date. So it should be a good one to use. Obviously, it does have that sort of care home feel about it, but it is sort of up to date. And we've added a new section as well, section 16, which I can't remember what it was about, but that's a brand new one that we've added. So
sounds like a good one, though.
What was it? I can't think. Yeah, no, I think it was number 16 or something. So it's annoying when they're not in order. So I'll tell you what, I'll search for 16. I probably got the number wrong anyway. No, I did. Maybe it was 15. I'm just going to work that back through the numbers, if that's okay. Oh, there we go. I was only one out. So infection prevention and control. I think that's a newer one. Well, I thought there was another one. So anyway, they've all been updated in the last few months, so they're all up to date at the moment. But that is going to be the most complex one, I think. I'll, just briefly looking through what you've actually you've looked at. Going down through clinical examinations and assessments, we've got an observations and a clinical examination area. So again, that would sort of fall into that. IV therapy, observations, and neuro only. So again, it'd be a matter of going through and just trying to isolate those question banks. But I would work from the, where you can work from the standard assessments already, because obviously we've done a lot of work preparing those already. The system, if you take out a question bank related to a particular guide, that will just automatically remove it from that introductory screen anyway, without having to worry about doing that manually. And then, say with the care certificate, obviously you have to have a think about how you'd want to do it. So
with the care certificate, would it make more sense to have a look at it and then decide, are we going to go down the care home or the NHS route?
Yeah, I would do that. So you've got the care certificate somewhere. Where is it? It's in
healthcare
adult social. It's adult social care.
It's adult social care.
Yeah, adult social care. So yeah, you've got them all here. And I must admit, I tend to prefer using the see all guides button, because it sort of lists them a little bit a bit easier, and then you can come down, just do a search for care certificate. Certif. There we go, and they're listed down there. So yeah, have a look through those. Yeah, it was number 16. I don't know why it didn't come up, but so awareness of learning disability and autism is a new one we've added, but I think they've all been updated this year. But yeah, have a look through them. See what you think of them. This one is so 2025. So they've all been done this year. So have a look through and see what see how they look. And then that's not right. Why is that's not very clear? I think it's just my screen doing weird things. It should be a bit clearer than that. Oh, I think it's just because I zoomed in. Did I zoom in? Yeah, it's because I'd zoomed in. That's why. So, but yeah, have a look through them all and see what you think, and then obviously see how the assessments bear up according to that. I mean, a lot of them are sort of, would be applicable. They've obviously got things like flowery covers and things to make them look more like a care home situation, but I don't know, in a hospice setting, presumably you've got a little bit of that personalisation anyway. So you'll probably find a lot of them are quite acceptable for a hospice setting. But have a look through yourself and see what you think. So there you go. Okay, I'm just trying to think, is there any other way or I mean, I'm quite happy to help with this. If you want things like with the duplicating the assessments, if you want me to go through and do that for you, just duplicate the standard ones so you've then got something to start with, or whether you'd like to look through yourself and then decide which ones to duplicate.
I think it'd be a fantastic help. However, I think we need to know how to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
And as much as we might go back on that in a few weeks' time,
that's okay. It's up to you, really. Yeah.
I think it's just, if we don't do it ourselves, I think we run the risk of then
never knowing how to do it. Yeah.
Well, if you do a couple and think, right, I understand this now, but it's just taking time and it's just legwork. Once you feel you understand it, maybe send me a list and say, great, we understand it now. Would you be able to just prepare these for us? So I can do some of the just legwork, duplicating and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that might be quite
if that's a
useful,
help.
Maria, if if we decide that most of them are going to be duplicated, we just need to go through and take ones out. If it was already duplicated, that might be simpler, but we do need to know how to do it. Definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, have I given you enough there? Do you think that you can make a good start?
I think so. I think we probably start with the care certificate, which totally blew our minds.
That's whether that's the best way, I don't know, but yeah, okay. I mean, maybe, you know, something like cannulation or catheterization might be a simple one just to get the feel of it, because care certificate is a big, you know, big topic.
I think also we've come to the conclusion that we do not need to reinvent the wheel at all, and actually we can use the majority, and it may just be some, but you know, it may be that we add our questions in much later, even once it's up and running, rather than trying to do it all right from the word go.
You could duplicate the standard assessment and then automatically create your local question bank for use later on, you know, just so it's there, and then come back to it later on. And again, you know, I'm happy to help with that if you want, but no, reinventing the wheel is what the NHS does, and they give it a different name and pretend it's a new idea. So been there, done that. So
banks do that as well.
They do. Oh, I remember I worked for the Wolverhampton Health Authority, and they decided to move offices. So they moved to a different office, took everything across. A year later, moved back again to the same offices. And the medical advisor at the time, he found he had a big pile of paperwork on his floor that had sat there all year and he'd not touched. So he thought, I'll just dump it. If I'd not needed it for a year, I won't need it again. So, but that was just, you know, big waste of money and letterheads and things like that. So such is life. So there you go.
I think we need to get on and just try and do some of these duplicate assessments, take out what's obvious.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe the one that we only need one out of the whole lot of guides, the palliative, is observations.
Yeah.
We only need one out of the whole observations. And I suppose the other thing is, Steve, is there a smart way of where it pulls up the two guides, like it did with that one, where it had carers and you know, the two assessments? I'm assuming if we've not picked the carers.
Oh, you mean like the introductory blurb to the
no, it had the two, you know, when we pulled up the assessment, it had two assessments. One only had a few questions in and one had a load of questions in. Carers, you just pick the one with the most questions.
You could do. I mean, the carers ones obviously will have cut down versions. It won't have, you know, it'll be aimed at HCAs and things like that. So it won't have sort of some of the more complex stuff that maybe nursing staff might need. So you might be under assessing people if you use that. But I would imagine that the one with more questions will have everything in the carers one plus a lot more. But of course, it doesn't matter. It's got 100 and something questions. It's only how many questions the person taking the assessment has. And I would suggest that keeping it sort of 20, 25 at most, really. You know, otherwise it gets very tiring and difficult. And with the assessments, you can make them timed, but usually, you know, people can start the assessment, then they can go away and come back the following day, or, you know, there's not that pressure. But you don't want 100 questions in the assessment.
No, that's just, definitely not.
Yeah, it's not very good at all. So, you know, if you're getting to that point, the assessment's getting too long, think, well, can we break it up? You know, can we divide it into part 1, part 2, or slightly different topics? So there you go.
Fantastic.
Okay, so are you happy for me to sort of leave you to have a go at that? Now, if you want to have another chat next week, that's fine, as much as you need. So there's no limits on it or whatever. So, and I've been this, you know, I've done this with other organisations, you know, and if you don't get comfortable with it, you won't use it, and it'll just annoy you, and it's going to be a big waste of your time. So I'm quite happy to, you know, help you as needed. So.
So as long as if we went through and just duplicated all the assessments. But didn't publish, we could then go and edit and take the questions out afterwards.
Yeah, as long as they're not published, no one will see them. So you can then go and make all the changes until you're happy, and you could publish it, but only make it available to, say, you know, each other. So you can just try taking it yourself and see what it looks like, and then you can add your local question in later on. And I think simplest, you can mix local and standard questions in one question bank, but it's going to be simpler just to keep all the locals in one question bank, so you know that they're all yours and you can do whatever you want with them. So
okay, fabulous. I think we've got a plan forward now. We've got structure.
Brilliant.
We need
That's great.
We structure
Well,
people. We need a structure.
no,
We
it's
need a
good. You've got
structurization.
to have a plan. I mean, I've got my little to-do list down here, so I have a plan, and then jiggle it around, and you've got to do this, then do that, and do that, and you'll get there eventually. So, but as I say, I'm here if you need another chat. So there's no limits on those. So apart from the fact I don't work Fridays, so I'm going to go enjoy the lovely. No, you don't. So it's great, isn't it? No, it's wonderful. I stopped back in April. I thought, no, because I got a pension that came in, so I thought, well, that means I can drop a day and nice long weekends. It's lovely. So
Very nice.
yeah, it's why not. So you doing anything special this weekend? Just to change the subject? No, weather looks rubbish. So no. Oh well, such is life. Another weekend. But there we go. Start Christmas shopping. Start your Christmas shopping. That's what you can do.
Not quite yet.
No, okay. So we got plenty of time left. Anything else, or are you okay for the moment?
I think probably do this short burst, give it a go.
Yep.
And when we get stuck, another short burst.
Yeah, well, I'm in Monday to Thursday next week, so give me a call if you want to have another meeting at some point, and we'll go through it again. Once you've got something, I can see what you've done on the system here, and then we can deal with it from there. So, but yeah, you're doing great.
And correct it.
Yeah, well, it's not easy. It is. When we built it, it's very flexible. Like you can have any question, any question bank, but that does make it a bit more complicated. And just getting your head around it to start with, is not easy. So you're doing very well. So don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyway, for your help and support is appreciated.
We really appreciate it.
I'm very happy to be here. So anyway, have a lovely weekend, and I maybe see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.